I thought having a black president of the United States would have heralded a new era of racial harmony. I think a lot of people thought that, but alas, it is not the case. I put it to you that the race riots raging in Baltimore and earlier in places like Ferguson, Missouri, are proof that, in fact, race relations in the United States are the worst since the 1960s. Now, by the way, in 2008, when Obama was elected, race relations were actually pretty good in the United States. African Americans had reached high heights in business, in the judiciary, my favorite being Clarence Thomas, in the military, Colin Powell, who went on to politics, the Secretary of State, followed by Condoleezza Rice. There was no high office that African Americans or people of any race could not achieve. I guess that last checkbox of president made it official. And of course, Barack Obama could not have been elected president without the support of many non-black voters. So it was a great moment. But since that time, I regret to report that things have gotten worse, and I actually don't think it's by accident. I believe it's by design, and I think I'm going to prove that to you, or try to, in the next 5 or 10 minutes. I mean, we see the riots in Baltimore, and behind the riots there and in every other city, of course, there is a seed of a real grievance, real or perceived. Perhaps it's a white cop shooting a black perpetrator, at the very least a cause of concern for the legal authorities, for the political authorities. But in every case, instead of dealing with the issue and the individuals, the Obama administration, including the outgoing Attorney General Eric Holden and the entire Democratic political apparatus, has attempted to reframe it as a national issue of racial division and to actually rub salt in the wounds. My example to you about Baltimore is, while the riots raged, Barack Obama enjoyed himself at the White House Correspondents' Dinner making jokes. He didn't get on TV, as he could have done so effectively, and said, listen, I know you're feeling grievance, but my friends, my community, do not riot. That is not the American way. You can meet your dreams and your aspirations through the American system. I am proof of that. I am president. If I can make it, so can you. You can imagine it could have been a very powerful speech, but Obama was silent. He was partying with the one percenters. Instead, he dispatched his buddy, Al Sharpton, the race huckster and hustler, to go and inflame the situation. When Al Sharpton arrives, hold on to your wallet and lock your doors, because a riot is about to happen. The mayor of Baltimore was no better. She is a black Democrat as well, and she had a press conference where she actually said her policy was not to crack down on these thugs, but to give them room to riot and destroy things. Here, take a listen.
We also gave those who wished to destroy space to do that as well.
Yeah, the only grown-up here is this mother who saw her own son rioting and went and gave him the back of her hand. Take a look. She was the only grown-up in the whole place. Now, I say that Barack Obama actually likes these race riots, and I know that sounds shocking to say, and how could that possibly be, and who could possibly like this, that kind of conflict? But I think it's the only explanation that makes sense. It's the only theory that fits all the facts, and let me tell you why I say so. It goes back to where Barack Obama comes from personally. He's not a typical African American. His story is not that of a descendant of slaves, for example. He, in fact, was the descendant of Barack Obama Sr., an exchange student from Kenya who met his mom, a white woman, and they fell in love personally, but also through an ideological connection. Both were Marxists, both were communists. That's not in dispute. And of course, Obama was raised in Indonesia by his stepfather, who also had anti-American radical leanings. So he comes from his Marxism naturally. And then when he went to Chicago, he went to university and he grew up and became politically active there, he fell in with Saul Alinsky and the Alinsky movement called community organizing. Now, I know community organizing sounds completely harmless. Oh, community organizing, does that mean a weekend barbecue or a car wash or a church picnic? No, community organizing has a very specific meaning. It's a term of art for going into a neighborhood, radicalizing a group of otherwise normal people and turning them into a political weapon. So by community organizing in Chicago, what that means is Barack Obama wasn't helping with charities and bake sales. He was going, in his case, through the black community, trying to racialize them, trying to whip them up against political enemies. That is the Saul Alinsky way. He wrote a book called Rules for Radicals. And if you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. It is a terrifying read. It is the roadmap for Barack Obama's life. He was a community organizer and has continued to be a community organizing president. Here's how community organizing takes the communist idea that meant to be an economic model and puts it on race and gender and sexuality. I mean, to try and bring communism to the United States is a long shot. America is the most entrepreneurial country, with a possible exception of Hong Kong. When poor people come to America, as they have for more than a century, and they see the Statue of Liberty, they see the gleaming skyscrapers, the typical feeling is, wow, I want to be a part of that. I want to get rich too. It's the American dream of I can make something out of nothing. It's not the envious Marxist approach of let's get the capitalists, let's organize the labor. No, the American dream is about going or being born with nothing and creating it into something. So to turn Americans into communists is very difficult, although Obama has tried through his community organizing of the Occupy Wall Street, his demonization of workers with his phrase, "You didn't build that," for entrepreneurs. In fact, by increasing entitlements and welfare, as Mitt Romney pointed out in the last election, only, fully 47% of Americans are the takers, only 53% are the makers. If you look at the labor force participation rate, fewer Americans as a percentage of the population are working now than at any time in the last 30 years. They're simply not even trying to find work anymore. So in his own way, Obama has attacked the American work ethic and the American dream. But getting the Marxist radical future that he and his father and mother wanted and Saul Alinsky fought for is not going to come primarily through economics. It'll come through culture. And that is the prism with which I have looked at these race riots in Baltimore and Ferguson and other places. Because what Obama has done and what Alinsky taught was to use that model of the oppressed working class versus the capitalists, to take that model of radicalization and division and hate and mobilization and weaponizing people, take that model and apply it to other things. So for example, if you have a case of a white man and a black man in a disagreement, even if it was a white cop shooting a black perpetrator, that's not just a case for the criminal justice system. That is the paradigm with which we should all look at the entire country. And you must either be outraged or you are part of the guilty party. So here you are mobilizing, radicalizing, racializing black folks who probably just want to be regular Americans. You're saying, no, you must be race conscious, and this is an affront to you, not just the guy who was shot. And you're saying to anyone on the other side, you are guilty, and you're just speaking from white privilege otherwise. That word white privilege has made such a strong comeback as Obama and Eric Holden, his former black attorney general, have tried to rub salt in the wounds, Al Sharpton style, of any racial divide. Why? To mobilize black Americans, pit them against white Republicans, push white Republicans back on the back foot, make them defensive, and bring in radical new laws, whether it's affirmative action or government spending, things of that sort, to create the crisis and then offer the big government solution. Obama doesn't just take that approach to black Americans, although that is where he has had his training. He takes it to Hispanic Americans too. That's behind his push to bring in literally millions of illegal aliens from Mexico, force them in the community without having them go through the proper rules and waiting lists and processing. And if you're against him, you're a racist. And he's obviously trying to get millions of Hispanics to be with him, again, to weaponize race rather than to have harmony. We see it now applying to gender issues as well. Again, if you think blacks are well integrated in the United States, well, women, it's even more harmonious. I mean, Hillary Clinton is running for office, but you can see her tactic, not to talk about her history and her experience, but to say, isn't it time we had a woman as president? Remember this clip?
I suppose it's only fair to say, don't you someday want to see a woman president of the United States of America?
Again, she is trying to divide. She's saying either you're for her, as any good liberal feminist would be, or you are a sexist, rape culture misogynist. Again, putting male Republicans on the back foot by, instead of making the politics about issues, making it about gender identity, mobilizing people based on race, based on gender, and most recently based on gender identity. Again, things have never been better than they are now for Americans who are gay or transsexual or whatever. It's not even an issue anymore. you would think we would have harmony, except that the Obama administration insists on making it an issue, insists on rhetorically rubbing salt in the wounds to say, for example, when a Christian bake shop doesn't want to make a wedding cake for a gay wedding, having press statements about that, announcing with great fanfare that there is a gender identity neutral bathroom now at the White House. These are not serious matters unless you are trying to do the same community organizing with gay Americans as you are with women, as you are with Black and Hispanic Americans, as you are with, poor proletariat Americans. Barack Obama is a radical. He was the most left-wing senator in the Senate during his brief term there. He worked Saul Alinsky style radically in Chicago, weaponizing poor blacks. He's simply continuing that now that he's president. For the Rebel.media, I'm Ezra Levant.